Hello, I'm Pastor Larry Dodson, pastor of New Life Community Church of Tulare. I am serving in Tulare this year as president of the Tulare Association of Churches. I do not take that title lightly because when it talks about the area of churches or association of churches, it tells me that I'm a part of a much bigger body than my own congregation. And one of the things that I want to share is about Black history. It is something that is very sacred to many African Americans, but I've learned that Black history is not only Black history, it's white history, it's brown history, it's multicultural history because we are all related through Christ. So I will pray that you will consider supporting the Tulare Association of Churches and enjoy some of these remarkable stories that are being shared by people in your community about Black history.
What I thought about Black history, it wasn't like I think of it now. Back then, I thought that it was that way all over the world, all over the U.S. I thought that's the way everything was. You couldn't go in the front door of a restaurant. You couldn't go into the same restaurant. You couldn't drink at the same water fountains. So I thought that's the way it was all over. Until September 15, 1962, I left home to go find work. I got on the Greyhound bus and rode for 3 days and 3 nights. After 4 hours of waiting, my friend finally shows up to get me, and I asked him, "What took you so long?" He says, "Well, I lived out on Long Island. It took me that long to get here, the city." And one of the first things he did was he says, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Yeah." So we went to a little restaurant inside the station. When he reached for the door handle, I grabbed his arm and I said, "Ned, what are you doing?" He says, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "You're going through the front door." He says, "Oh, we can go in the front door of a restaurant here. We're in New York." That was one of the big experiences that caused me to start thinking that it's really not the way it was back home. Oh, that's what my Black history experience. That's how it began. That's how it began.
I still have a dream.
As I think about Black History Month, and one of the things that is significant for me is certainly Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I guess I just appreciate his pastor's heart. I know in so many ways that there was certainly the civil rights movement. He became certainly a political character, and all that's very important as a part of God's calling in his life. But I just appreciate, I think, what I've enjoyed studying about Dr. King is just his pastor's heart.
1964, Martin Luther King came himself. After sitting under him and hearing him share, he was sitting all alone against the wall, and I went over to him. I said, "Reverend King," I says, "when I was in high school, I used to read about you leading marches. I used to see them handcuffing you, arresting you, taking you to jail, and all of this." I says, "I thought you were some kind of hoodlum. I didn't know anything about you. But now that I know you and I hear you, I see you," I says, "I was wrong. I have a change of heart." Reverend King smiled and he said, "Well, Brother Charles, I'm glad you have a change of heart."
And one story that I think kind of captures that for me is his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, that on the night before, Dr. King wasn't even sure what he was going to say, and anybody who's been in that situation can just imagine the magnitude of that important moment. And this next day, he's going to stand out here And so there was a group of folks gathered in the room, and they're all trying to put together the speech. And there's so many things that needed to be said. And I can just imagine, how do you say and address all the things that need to be said at such an important speech? Mahalia Jackson, a gospel singer who was there on the platform, had heard Dr. King previously deliver a sermon entitled "I Have a Dream," and where he shared much of that. And what's interesting, has always been interesting to me, is the phrasing that became so famous. In fact, that speech became known as the "I Have a Dream" speech. Actually, didn't involve that in the text, the original text at all. But because of Mahalia Jackson saying to Dr. King in that moment, "Tell him about your dream, Martin." As I understand, Clarence Jones has commented that he said he noticed Dr. King move his speech to the side of the lectern, and Clarence said he told the guy next to him, he kind of leaned over and said, "These people don't know it yet, but they're getting ready to go to church."
Martin Luther King Jr. once said, in responding to how he deals with all the different suffering, he says, "I don't like to talk about my suffering," but he says, what I realize is that suffering could be something that I respond to with bitterness, or I could respond to with a creative force. And that creative force is something that is so inspiring. And as we celebrate Black History Month, that's something that we celebrate. Not the oppression, not the history of people who have been oppressed, but the history of people who have been victorious and who have stood up underneath that courageously.
When I hear that, Carlton, you're the mayor of Tulare, yeah, I'm proud of that. I love the city. You know, I love all the people in this city, and I'm honored for that opportunity to serve. Nettie Washington was a huge influence. Seeing her there, when I worked for the city of Tulare, and I would walk through City Hall, and I would see that wall that was covered with all the past mayors, I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And when Nettie Washington ran for council and won by huge numbers, to me that was her kicking in a door that a lot of us never really saw before. I didn't know it back then, but I was a Toys for Tot kid, and I thought everyone had their toys delivered by the police department. And I just thought that sometimes Santa Claus gets that busy that he asked the men in blue to deliver toys every now and then. And I remember I was 9 years old, and Tulare police officers showed up to the door, and we were good kids, so we didn't run as if we thought we were going to be in trouble. We were just poor kids, financially poor, rich in spirit, but financially poor. And these programs a lot of the programs that I participate in today are programs that I benefited from years ago.
Grew up in a single parent home, didn't really have much at times, and I needed an outlet, to be successful in life. So I chose basketball. Just happened to, get scouted by, some colleges and kind of went from there. But it's definitely been an honor and blessing to be back in Tulare, to be a teacher and teach students, what I've learned through the course of my life and my career, and just to give back to my community has been the best reward so far in my life.
So Jesus said that we are to be one. And it's really easy to be one if we're all the same. But we're not, because we represent the diversity of God as we're made in his image, made in this diversity. And to be one in that diversity gives him glory.
When we come together and we put aside the things that divide us, because Jesus said we're not of this world, we're of his body. And when we come together and become one, we glorify him.
And so we're really encouraged that to be one, to be unified, is something that we're going to move forward in this community with all the churches, and especially the ones in the Tulare Association of Churches who are coming together.
One church, one voice, one hope.
And saying we are going to be one.
God bless you. We'll see you soon.